Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the Fiqh of Zakah, the third pillar of Islam, a very important topic that affects all of society, all of the Muslim society. To help me go through this topic and to expound, we have our Sheikh Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Jamil.
Sheikh, previous episodes we've looked at Zakah in its definitions, how to imply it, we went through it in currency, went to gold and silver, and we looked into the plants, the crops, and you explained to us what crops we were going to use in this zakah, this arena of zakah. One thing you spoke about before were certain types of crops. So you said to us, for example, wheat, barley, raisins and dates. Now what if we have different types of crops and we put them together? Can they then still be calculated zakah upon?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wal aqibatu lil muttaqeen. ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأولين والآخرين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. When we stated the nisab, which is خمسة أوسق, and we said approximately it is equivalent to 720 kilogram of grains or fruits, whatever we specified. This is a nisab for each item. So if somebody possessed 4.5 awsuq of any of those categories, and another 3 or 4.5 of another category, we do not say we combine them together in order to complement each other and have the nisab or more than the nisab. No. The nisab for each category is independent. So if it doesn't reach it, then this part or this category is not zakatable.
So like the gold and silver, like you told us before, there's no combination
Exactly.
in this. Is there any time that there can be a combination for these products at all? Is there any time at all that there's a
If it
mixture?
is of the same category but maybe different varieties, so for instance, raisin, we have a higher quality and a lower quality in the same field. Or he has more than one field and the harvest is a good quality and a lower quality. So obviously will be merged together and added to each other, and whatever the sum up, whether it is a nisab or more than the nisab. So because we do not say, because this is a different quality, it should be treated as a different category. And by the way, perhaps that would lead us to also speak about, since we're speaking about quality, that whenever the farmer or the person who is a zakah payer owes a zakah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminded us in the Quran with the following fact, that we should not look for the worst quality and take it out and give it to the poor. Unfortunately, people do that. For instance, when we buy dates in certain areas, people may put the good quality on top, just the first patch. Then when you finish it up, you will see the small ones, the defective ones beneath it. This is haram. This is cheating. And whenever we're supposed to give the old zakah, we're supposed to choose what's good.
What's the best of the crop, would you say?
Not necessarily, because the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to Mu'adh ibn Jabal, وَإِيَّاكَ وَكَرَائِمُ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. So do not take the best to hurt the rich, nor do we take the worst to hurt the poor. Rather the average. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the believers who are the zakah payers in Surah Al-Baqarah in verse number 276 as follows. He says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَنفِقُوا مِنْ طَيِّبَاتِ مَا كَسَبْتُمْ. Spend in a charity, the mandatory charity, from the lawful earning which you have earned. وَمِمَّا أَخْرَجْنَا لَكُم مِنَ الْأَرْضِ. That is pertaining the produce of earth. وَلَا تَيَمَّمُوا الْخَبِيثَ مِنْهُ تُنْفِقُونَ. And don't you aim at the worst of the produce in order to give it to the poor. وَلَسْتُمْ بِآخِذِيهِ إِلَّا أَن تُغْمِضُوا فِيهِ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. Which means, put yourself in the position of the poor, the recipient. You yourself, you are not going to take this because you know it's a very bad quality, unless if you have to close your eyes in order to tolerate it. Act like, pretend that you did not see it because you're extremely hungry or you just have to take it. No. Put yourself in the position of the recipient. What would you like? You don't have to give the best, but at least مِن طَيِّبَاتِ مَا كَسَبْتُمْ. And don't aim at the worst of it.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Now, we've gone through in previous episodes wealth. We looked at the different types of wealth. And now we've gone through, for example, the currencies and gold and silver. We've gone through now plants. And, of course, that, of course, is food stuff. There's one part of this whole cycle that we haven't touched upon. And we could say it's one of the most important, because many people are graded nowadays on this type of, shall we say, wealth, which is livestock, or shall we say cattle. How does that fare in terms of zakah, Shaykh?
Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed us that there is zakah due on cattle, but not on livestock or on animals, but particular things such as camels, cattle or cows and buffaloes, and sheep. So these are the only three categories. So donkeys and horses and all of that, unless if they're used in trade. Okay?
Yep.
Trade is different, as we discussed before. But the three categories or kinds of animals or livestock which is zakatable: al-ibil, camels; al-baqar, cows; al-ghanam, the lamb or the sheep. But before we speak about the nisab and the hawl, because it's also necessary in order to determine whether this is zakatable or not, we have to reflect on some of the beautiful verses that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveal in the Quran, reminding us with this blessing of making animals and cattle subservient to us, some of which we ride on their back, means of transportation, some of which are used for tilthing and agriculture, some of which are used for milk,
Subhanallah,
eating their flesh, whatever we wear, of fur, of genuine leather. I mean, endless benefits. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in verse number 66 of Surah An-Nahl. Nahl means the honeybees. And by the way, Surah An-Nahl talks a lot about cattle, Al-An'am, to the extent some scholars say it should have been called Surah Al-An'am. While there is a whole chapter, it's a very lengthy one, it's called Al-An'am, or the cattle. The verse says, وَإِنَّ لَكُمْ فِي الْأَنْعَامِ لَعِبْرَةً نسقيكم مما في بطونه من بين فرث ودم لبنا خالصا سائغا للشاربين. Here is an example, a reminder that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us with one of the great blessings: cattle. You have an admonition in them. How? Look at the milk that you drink and you enjoy. You say it has so much calcium and you have to drink milk in order to grow good bones, powerful structure, etc. This milk is coming, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from between the following: min bayni farthin wa dam, between the feces, the excretion and the urine, the waste of the animal and the blood. So neither one of them is this is disgusting. So milk is coming from between these two items, and there we have a purified drink, سائغا خالصا, purified, سائغا palatable للشاربين, for those who drink it and they enjoy it. في سورة ياسين Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون. Have they not seen that we have created for them of what our hand have made cattle, so that they possess and they control? How? وَذَلَّلْنَاهَا لَهُمْ فَمِنْهَا رَكُوبُهُمْ وَمِنْهَا يَأْكُلُونَ. And we made those cattle subservient to them. So some of which they ride on their back, and some of which they eat their flesh. وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا مَنَافِعُ وَمَشَارِبُ. And there are multiple benefits and drink. أَفَلَا يَشْكُرُونَ. Won't they be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? These are some of the ni'am. There are many verses in this regard. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders wealthy people who have plenty of livestock and investing in them to give out of that a small percentage of the same kind animals to the poor, because the poor are seeing your herd and your cattle going back and forth, going grazing, coming back to the stable. So they look at them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, satisfy the need of the poor by some of what we have given you. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam indicated that the zakah due in livestock is in camels, cows, and sheep. And there is a general consensus amongst the scholars of the Ummah. These are the three categories which are zakatable, providing they reach the nisab. For each kind, there is a specific nisab that is different than gold and silver and currencies, different than the plants and the fruits. And in case of livestock, al-hawl is required as well, which is possessing the livestock, the nisab, for one complete lunar year. وَأَن تَكُونَ سَائِمَةً. This is another extra condition, which is that freely grazing. They have free pasture.
So they're not ones which are, how do you say, brought up on and cultivated. These are ones that are going on the free land.
Basically, you have your cattle or your camels and you send them in the open. They eat from the grass. It's called freely grazing. They eat from the green that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. So in this condition, such livestock meeting those conditions, attaining the nisab, one complete year, and sa'ima freely grazing is zakatable. Remains for us to address the rate of zakah for each category.
Jazakallah khair. This is a good point for us to take a short break now. Please remember, these topics that we're discussing are those which are beneficial for all of us. Please take a pen, take a pad, take notes. Very interesting, very informative topics. Please join me in a couple of minutes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the Fiqh of Zakah. Just before the break there, Sheikh, we went into the lively stock. We went speaking about cattle and how important Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in these cattle themselves. One point I would say, and very clearly, Sheikh, is that when you speak about lively stock, there's one cattle that you speak about which always comes to mind, and Allah speaks about in the Quran many a time, is camels. And one thing about the camels, they're very, very succinct as they are as animals. How do we go and do zakah, or how do we collect the nisab on this kind of animal and the others that you mentioned, Sheikh?
Okay. First of all, I would like to share with you something as well as my beloved viewers. Whenever we were studying this in Al-Azhar at elementary school or middle school or wherever, it was a very hard subject when it comes to the nisab of the zakah on livestock. Because there is a lot of calculations and a lot of names and terms such as bintu labun or bintu makhad, etc. So sometimes we tend to skip it. And I understand that those who are watching us right now, once they hear those terms, they will be turned off. So I would say, let's educate ourselves and at least have an idea. We're going to make it very simple and easy as much as we can. Even if you're not a farmer or if you're not investing in livestock, have an idea in order to see how beautiful is our religion, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explain everything in details.
So true. Jazakallah khair.
And before I touch base on any of that, let me give you a few terms. Four with regards to camel and their definition. The word bintu makhad is a she camel that is only 1 year or completed 1 year and it is starting its second year. That is a bintu makhad. Ibn or bint labun. Bint labun is a she camel that is 2 years old and have started the third. Then the right pronunciation of the third one is hiqqah, not huqqah. Hiqqah, which is a she camel, 3 years old and starting already the fourth. Then, with regards to camel, the last is jaz'ah. This is a she camel, 4 years old, starting its fifth year. Okay, let's stop at that and speak about the zakah rate. There is no zakah on camels unless one possesses 5 of them. So if he has 4 and many sheep, it will not be zakatable. Let's look at the chart with us and the PowerPoint here. Once somebody possesses 5 camels, freely grazing for 1 complete year in his possession, then the zakah rate on it is 1 sheep. 1 sheep. share. Then when he has 10, or when his camels reach 10, then the zakah is 2 sheep. Thus every time they increase by 5, the zakah due on them is 1 more sheep, until they reach 25. In this case, we're going to use the terms which we discussed earlier. Bintu makhad. Makhad means the mother is pregnant. So a she camel, a young she camel, which is only 1 year, have completed 1 year and entering the second. Whenever somebody possesses for 1 year 25 freely grazing camels, then he owes bintu makhad. Whenever they reach 36, then bintu labun. This is a she camel, 2 years old and entering the third. Whenever they reach 46 camels, the zakah due is hiqqah, that is 3 years old, entering the fourth. Whenever they reach 61, the zakah is jaz'ah, that is 4 years old, entering its fifth. Whenever they reach 76, then it owes as a zakah 2 bint labun. 2 bint labun. From 91 to 120 camels, the zakah is 2 young camels which are known as hiqqatan. Okay? Whenever the number of camels is above 120, then on every 40 camels, the zakah due is 1 bint labun. Again, the bint labun is that a she camel, young she camel, 2 years old, entering the third. And on every 50 above the 120, the zakah due is 1 hiqqah. That is she camel, 3 years old and entering its fourth.
Okay, I have a question for you now. Why, for the first, do we have 5 camels? And why 5 camels, 1 sheep? Why not say, for example,
because you cannot give a camel, the zakah rate is very tiny and small. You remember in case of gold and silver, when we say 2.5%, you can exactly extract the amount from your gold or silver or paper money or currency. But how would you take this out of a camel? Cut an organ or a limb? So it is relating to it. And later, inshallah, we'll speak about whether we're obliged to pay zakah as is specified, or we can pay the value, and we'll discuss this in details, inshallah. Now let's talk about the zakah rate on cattle, if time allows. We said the zakah is not due on camels until they reach 5. In the case of camels, the cattle are subject to zakah provided they are freely grazing herd and number 30 at the completion of the hawl or the lunar year. At this point, the zakah is due to give a tabi' or a tabi'ah. Tabi' or a tabi'ah, it is a baby camel that 1 year old entering or 1 year old tabi'ah for a male, and for a female or a cow is tabi'ah. Whenever the cows reach number 40, the zakah is musinna. It's a musinna, it's a cow that is 2 years old. Whenever the number reaches 60 cows, then it owes zakah 2 young cows, 2 tabi'ahs. Whenever the number reaches 70, then the zakah due is musinna and 1 tabi'ah. Musinna and 1 bull that is only 1 year old. And whenever the number reaches 80, then we have the zakah due on that. It owes 2 musinnas. And when it reaches 90, then 3 tabi'ah. 100, it owes 1 musinna and 2 tabi'ahs. I have to say that, and this is just general information for those who are not into the livestock business, but in order to understand that the deen really dealt in details with every aspect. So the farmers have to know what concerns them. Those who are in shepherds, for instance, have to know what concerns them with regards to their herd and number of cattle or animals and so on. So when the person owns 110 cows, freely grazing, and he possesses them for 1 complete year, he owes 2 musinna, and the musinna is 2 years old, and 2 tabi'a, which is 1 year old. Whenever the number is 120, then he owes the zakah on that 3 musinna or 4 tabi'a. This system is followed on all additional cattle, 1 tabi'a, and on every 40, 1 musinna. Musinna means 2 years old. Remains for us the last, and hopefully, as I said, we would not act as we used to do whenever we were young and we get to study this part, then we'll skip it. The nisab in the case of sheep.
Okay.
If somebody has a herd of sheep that is less than 40 heads, he owes 0 zakah.
Less
but
than
once
40, 0, huh?
Exactly. With the same conditions, freely grazing, and he possesses them for 1 complete year. So, when he has 40 until 120, the zakah is only 1 sheep. 1 sheep. If you have 120, 119, 18, only 1 sheep. That's nothing. And this is obviously if you maintain it for 1 year. So if you have it to the next year, the same zakah will be applicable. Unless if the number increases from 121 to 200, the zakah is 2 sheep. From 201 to 300, the zakah is 3 sheep. And when the number is above 300, then 1 additional sheep is added for each addition of 100. By that, we recognize that the person who is required to give 1 sheep should not look at, I'm giving 1 sheep. No, you should remember that Allah gave you 120 sheep. Maybe you don't have that much number, but up to 100 sheep, there is no zakah. There is something called awqas, in between. Like I said, in the case of the sheep, the minimum threshold is 40. And the maximum is 120. And in between, it's only 1 sheep.
SubhanAllah.
Right? This is afu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pardons us. Similarly, in the case of the rates in the camel and in between the numbers, the ranging, you owe nothing other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specified.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, now that's a lot of detail, and like you said before, it's not for everybody, but it's something that people should look into. Somebody may ask, because we looked at quality in our previous episodes. Quality, Sheikh. What about this quality of zakah? What about these livestock? Do they have to be of certain quality when you're giving zakah?
Once again, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq afterward, and Umar ibn Khattab specified that would not take the harima, the akula, or harima is an old sheep, and that's why it was specified certain age. So you do not take a defective animal. You're giving this to the poor, but you're putting it in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you remember the story of Qabil and Habil, when they were all, instead of bidding over who's going to marry the girl or the sister, Adam alayhi salam suggested to them to offer a sacrifice. So Qabil offered the worst of his produce, and Habil chose a nice fat ram. So this is what Allah accepts. إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. So if somebody is willingly giving the zakah, you should choose something that is healthy, not defective. And if we're collecting the zakah and the state employees are collecting the zakah, then you should stay away from a milking animal, because it benefits the owner and his family, or a pregnant or newly given birth animal, because you cannot separate between the mother and the baby. There are so much details that when you study that, you can put this as a doctrine for animal rights in Islam.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Muhammad. Again, you've given us so much information, some valuable information to us. Again, another episode where we're going into the fiqh of zakah, a very important topic, and something which really affects all of us. And like today, even lively stock and cattle and animals such as this that Allah has given us, we have to give back and give to the poor and those who are needy. Until next time, I leave you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.